shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions,
You hear me?
Hello.
That's how our show started. Yeah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Well, please, somebody, please. Okay, there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of On Point. Today is going to be hot. I can see it. I'm looking at New England and I see nothing but fog and fire. There got to be smoke somewhere. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jerome Gaiman from South Florida here. We have a full house of firebrand. It's going to be hot. With me are my co-host, Mr. Michael Padmore from the cold state of Minnesota. With me on the upper right-hand corner, like they used to say in the heavyweight boxing, is Jimmy Eastman from the nation's capital. And then from New England, the Patriot, we are looking at Ansu Opa Dualu. It's going to be hot. Mr. Eastman, introduce yourself. What is it you're doing? You're looking real relaxed. How was your weekend?
Well, this is a day in infamy, 9/11 in the United States. This is the day that the most serious attack on American soil occurred when 3 airplanes exploded in the Twin Towers at the Pentagon, which is just down the road from me, and in Pennsylvania. So this is not a holiday. This is a day that many people mourn. But other than that, it is a normal day in the nation's capital. But our nation, our petty nation of Liberia, is on fire. And that is the hot topic for the week.
Thank you very much. Co-partner, Mr. Padmore.
How are you? How are you guys doing? I'm glad to be here. It's something I actually forgot to do on 9/11. So I guess it's been that long. And somebody had to remind me today was 9/11. So, but anyways, it just shows how long I've been in this people country, and hopefully the things we do here today will somehow play a role in bettering our country so that we can go back and we can commemorate 9/11 from Monrovia or Buchanan or from wherever niche we are. But I'm glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation and debate.
Beautiful. Mr. Dualo, how you doing there, my friend?
Not too bad, Mr. Gaiman. And thanks so much for having me on today. I think most people remember where they were when 9/11 happened. I still remember I was on the University of Massachusetts campus in the cancer class that day. We were kind of excited. We're not knowing initially what was happening until we saw on TV what was happening. But at the end of the day, like Mr. Palmore said, the intention here is to make sure whatever we say and do, so Liberia can get better, irrespective of the positions we hold. At the end of the day, all of us can agree we want a better Liberia. And I hope we continue to seek Liberia out for the better.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, do us a favor. Just hit the share button. Let us bring all our friends and families. Our show is divided into 3 parts. Introduction. We usually do the conversation piece. And then we take calls or read your comments. And then we do our closing. As you can see, you got 3 brilliant young men on here who comes from different backgrounds. When it comes to politics, we got different political parties. We argue as though we are going after each other, and rightfully so. But we are friends and brothers. This is what the democracy calls for. We can differ, but then we agree to disagree. Just like you see in this country, when you see the Republicans and the Democrats are going out there on the floor, when they are done with the country's business, when it comes to their family affairs, their children go to the same school, they attend the same Ivy League schools, they do everything together, but they have one thing in common, which is the nation. So this is where we are. We all have one thing in common, is the nation. Like my pastor, Dr. G. Franklin Holt, used to say, it's like going to heaven or going to Monrovia or going to Washington, D.C. You can drive to Washington, D.C. You can fly to Washington, D.C. You can walk to Washington, D.C. You can take the bus. You can take the train. Just get there. This is where we are with Liberia. We don't want any violence. We don't want any war. We don't want any carnage. We just want to get to that place where we say we have arrived. Our democracy has matured. This is where we are fighting to be collectively. So everybody brings something to the table. Let me introduce the topics today. A few days ago, there was this massive turnout in Grand Bassa County where my senator, Nyonblee Lawrence, have brought her supporters to kind of maybe influence the political process within the Unity Party. And after that event, everybody said there were t-shirts being worn by influencers within the Unity Party. Nyonblee was a shoe-in. Well, Unity Party counter today came out with a press release distancing itself from that notion or whatever rumor that was. So Nyonblee is not a shoe-in pick as everybody thought it would have been. Then number 2 on the list is a young man by the name of George Solo, a former chair of the CDC. He has become very, very bombastic. He has come back out again, this time with even more fire. We're going to discuss what George Solo means. Why is he behaving this way? And what's the objective? Does he have an outcome? And number 3 here, Liberia prepares to connect to the CLSG electrical grid. So finally, Liberia is going to be electrified according to this agreement. And then finally, what will be President George Weah's final next step as far as the sanctions, everything that's happening in the country? So we are going to go around the table and we're going to do that. But let's continue to share this show. Get ready to call in, send in your comments. No holds barred here. We are ready to rock and roll. Mr. Eastman, let's go with number 1. In your hometown, Grand Bassa County, Buchanan in particular, some people call it a floor show. Some people thought it was a charade. Some people thought it was a coronation. What says D about what happened in Bassa and now the subsequent, I guess it's a flashback or pushback or whatever you call it, to the point where the party have to officially come out and put up a disclaimer?
Well, I look at what happened. Okay, let's recap a little bit. They had a fundraiser in Grand Bassa, and the fundraiser was in support of the Unity Party and Ambassador Boakai's plight for presidency. And Nyonblee was the principal who was holding this rally. But at the rally, Mo Ali reportedly touted T-shirts of Nyonblee or Boakai Nyonblee ticket for 2023. Now, if you look at this, for somebody like, in one of the higher echelons of the party, like Mo Ali, to preempt an official announcement by the party because before one is chosen, there's a selection process, you would think, that is honored. And this in the selection party, of course, the VP will have his last say, but should be a vetting process and maybe a process of elimination or a process of voting to finally come up with the best candidate, the best suitable candidate to win. So for Mo Ali to preempt that process and suggest to the general public that this is the ticket was very surprising, was news breaking. Now we hear a reaction from the UP party distances itself from this notion. So apparently Mo Ali's move could be a backfire, because now, if they do not select Nyonblee, that may create some ill feeling. Again, you want the more voters, the more supporters you can get. And if they do, now that they've already played their cards, people can start stacking against them. There have been much to say about her candidacy, whether it will be weak or strong. So I look at it as a gamble, a serious gamble that Mo Ali took, and I don't think it. For some, I would call it callous, but it could be for some. It would be a calculated move. So, and now that the Unity Party is coming back and say no, we have not taken up that stance. I think it looks very bad. I think this will subtract. This is a lose-lose game for them. Either way they go.
Thank you. Ansu, I know you're the Unity Party man here, so I'm going to leave the ANC guys out. I'm going to actually hold on, because I don't want you guys to ambush you. So let's go to the ANC man, Michael Padmore. What's going on?
Ansu.
No.
Ansu just now lifted my hair.
Okay. Ansu, go ahead. Educate us here. What's going on with
the only thing I would agree with Mr. Eastman on is Mo Ali preempting what the Unity Party is going to do. Now, I want to make this very clear, though, Mr. Gayman. I think what happened in Buchanan, people were just advocating for themselves. And number two, I don't think whatever perceived decision that was being made in Buchanan by the likes of Mo Ali, by wearing T-shirts suggesting that Nyonblee would be the second person in command on the VP boycott, I don't think it takes away any vote of any kind. People were advocating. I believe if Mr. Boycott goes into Lofa County, they will believe you pick somebody from Lofa County. And I think that's just what it was. But I will agree with Mr. Eastman on this one. Because of the position that Mo Ali holds, I think he should stay away from any possible dealings that could increase the necessity of division within the party. Okay, I wouldn't do that. But I don't think it's going to take anything away from the Unity Party. I think the Unity Party is just providing clarity on the issue. At the end of the day, Honorable Boycott has the final say on who he picks for the vice presidential position. It will take some time. People will advocate. There's nothing wrong with that. We're talking about democracy here. That's what it's for. But at the end of the day, the very higher rung of the party should not be wearing T-shirts suggesting in what direction the VP is going to go. That's what I'm going to say for that. For now.
Okay. Well, let me checkmate you here. Does Boyka have a record of going through the vetting process, or he randomly made the decisions like he did Nukwe, when he had several choices out of nowhere? Nukwe became chosen. Was there a vetting process, or?
I think what you're doing nowadays, you're saying something that you're not entirely privy to. Even though Honorable Boyka did come out and suggest that he will pick Nukwe, there was an internal decision made by the Unity Party. Now, you did say some duality unit. I'm not a Unity Party person. In fact, I subscribe to Mr. Cummings' ideology more than I subscribe to initially the World Liberty Party. Now, Mr. Cummings made some decisions that I don't agree with, and I kind of shy away a little bit, but I'm not a registered politician or any political party. I want to make that very clear. So there was an internal decision made, and Honorable Boyka announced that decision before what's his name was picked. Nukwe was picked.
Great. Mr. Patmore, you finally got a chance to chime in here. What is going on here? What do you see? What's the gimmicks here?
It's very simple. You know, there is within a United Party, there is a crisis brewing. And some people decided they were going to up the ante by coming public. This is a game that they've been playing for a while. You know, there are two guys in that mix that are buddies. Senator Dillon and Mo Ali. They're buddies. When you watch those two guys, their approach to politics is very similar. Okay? Ahead of the CPP convention, Senator Dillon came out on Facebook and said, I'm leaning towards boycott. That was the beginning of the end of CPP. At that point, Liberty Party split. Because at that point, everybody felt like, well, if this guy can come out and play his hand, then we too, we have to play our hand. And that's when you saw the Musa Belete group come out and say, okay, if Dillon said he leaning towards boycott, we leaning towards Cummings. So let's talk it and let's duke it out. You know? And we see it happening once more. Before the standard bearer can actually go through the process and select his VP, the Mo Alis of United Party are doing the same thing. They're coming up and saying, we're leaning towards Nyonblee. So now what is happening is that the other group that are leaning towards Ure and possibly a few other people, they too now, they started grumbling. In order to quell that and allow it to spill out into the public, United Party has decided they are going to come out and make a public statement. But we all know this is what is happening. So that public statement, between you and I, that public statement means nothing. It's just a political show to say nothing. You know how when something happens in the political kind of say, nothing going on here, nothing to see. There is plenty to see. It will come out. And the closer that they get to that nomination, the larger or the higher the possibility of things blowing up. And that's where you will see, mark my words, United Party will split before we get to the campaign.
Wow.
I said it here today.
Wow. Mr. Eastman, we got a breaking news here. This bastard man is a soothsayer. He has already predicted what's going to happen. So we're going to have a split Unity Party and a split Liberty Party. That's what he foresees here. Now, here we are. What does this say about Joseph Boakai management style? We are talking about everywhere he goes, there's chaos. When he was in Washington, D.C., when he came to the United States, he said, you can rely on me. Relax. When I get to Liberia, I'm a unifier. I'm going to bring the CPP together and we're going to squash everything. But this thing have followed him all the way through now is down to his own party. And like you just heard Mr. Patton say, the party is about to be an atom. It's going to be split. Mr. Eastman, this is serious stuff.
Yeah. You know what is admirable about Ambassador Boakai? He's a diplomat. He understands diplomacy. And this is why he has been able to ride the tides of administration. Because he knows how to play the role. When it comes to actual management, you as a businessman, Mike, you know, it's do or die. If you don't manage your business properly, your business fails. It's different with government. You can mongo, or you can just appear as if you're managing and get away with it. But now when your management actually will decide what was going to happen the next day, it becomes critical. And we've seen the management on behalf of Joseph Boakai since he took over the party. in 2017, once it was turned over to him by the president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. We've seen how he's managed the UP party since then. We did not see him summon all the key players of all the big politicians, the people in key positions. We did not see him exercise the authority that he had been given. He did not bring them together and start assigning a task and duties so that they will win the next election. So I saw that as lacking management of the party. And then when we saw in the CPP, he was quoted to say he could bring the PPP together when it began to collapse. And we did not see that happen. In fact, it was under his chairmanship or under his leadership when the CPP actually finally did collapse. But Mr. Padmo mentioned something who was keen into in the CPP. The announcement, when Dillon came up with that announcement, to me, Dillon had the most political capital at that time. And I don't consider him using it wisely, because for where he held, every group held him in high esteem. He had just come off a victorious run, and all the groups were touting him as the poster child of the opposition. For him to play his cards or to show his hand, tilting toward one or another, I thought that wasn't the wisest decision he could make. And it may determine his political future. But at that time, he was at the helm. He was at the peak. Anybody he could have supported might have changed the tides. So I thought he should have been much more careful how he showed his hand at that time. But yeah, what we've been seeing is, to me, mismanagement. And you can have a good company or a good business or a good administration, but mismanagement can lose it for you. And that's what from my observation from this far, I've seen too much mismanagement when it comes to that. When the ambassador's part, there's been too much mismanagement.
Great. I would like Mr. Dualo to close on this so we can move on to George Soros. We're running out of time.
Okay.
Mr. Dualo, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't take too long. And I'm going to say this first. Mr. Palmer was suggesting that because Honorable Dillon leans in a direction, and that lean is sufficient enough to dissolve an arrangement, a political arrangement between political parties. I think it's ridiculous. Okay, yes, I can understand. If somebody have tremendous clout in a political arrangement, they can take decisions a certain way based on how they lean, but Dillon did not have the clout at that time to do that. He has some, but not sufficiently. And the mere fact that Mr. Palmer also suggested that there might be a dissolution of the UP party, or there might be a split of the UP party based on some perceived infighting. I think it's far-fetched. I mean, in a political arrangement, people will have disagreement. I believe the UP party is as cohesive as it's going to be. In fact, I believe they're getting stronger. There are arrangements being made. People are baying for position. You have to understand all this stuff is part of the political arrangement. But for you to suggest that the UP is going to split because somebody wore a T-shirt in Grand Bassa County, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I want to just say that and pass it over back to you.
Okay, Mr. Padmo, I wanted to go to the next one, but I cannot leave you hanging. This man tried to punch you in the nose. Let's go. He says that what you said is ridiculous.
So two things. One is that, yes, indeed, Senator Dillon, they have that clout. So Senator Dillon was the one that walked into the CPP stronghold and defeated over 100,000 votes. George Weah could not gather those votes, even when he was running for senator. So Senator Dillon did have that clout. The reason why I say UPP is going to split is not because it's just because of the T-shirt. It's because of Ambassador Boyka's inability to lead. He didn't lead in the CPP, and it caused the CPP split. And I am saying here today, the Unity Party was split because of Ambassador Boyka's inability to show leadership. That's where I'm coming from. And I will mark my words, and we'll talk about it later on, and you guys will see where I'm coming from.
Great. The Bassa people, they got the Niji thing going. They can see deeper than anybody else, so I won't put that by you. But let's move to the next topic here. During the heyday of the CDC, there were a lot of young, progressive, vibrant young men parading the streets of Monrovia and the United States, trying to make something happen. And something did happen. They fought for power and they have reached the pinnacle of power at the top. But in the process, some of the trees, some of the fruits fell from the tree and just never made it to the processing plant. Out of that fruit came this young man called George Soros, who was a very eloquent, I'm talking about bombastic soldier in the field. George Bush used to say, leave no child behind, but the CDC left George Soros behind. George Soros behind. What happened? And now he's like a pressure cooker, and the lid is blowing off everywhere he goes. Mr. Dualo, I know you have a little insight about this fight, or if you follow the history of the CDC, enlighten us here. What's going on here?
First of all, Mr. Gayman, hopefully you don't interrupt me, and I'll be very quick. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this, and I believe this to my core, and this is actually supported by evidence. What we see today, President Weah has no business near the presidency. I believe he should do this country a favor and not run in 2023 under any circumstance. The man cannot govern. He doesn't have the wherewithal to do that. And Liberia is going to get worse if any mistake is made to maintain this administration. Let me say this. Look, George Soros and the guys in CDC. And a couple of nights ago, I spent a lot of time with some of the founding members of CDC who were just chatting around and just talking. And most of these guys, very brilliant Liberians, they had a plan for Liberia. The reason why they stuck behind President Weah, initially I did not understand the reasoning. I mean, listen, guys, most of you guys are highly educated. You understand how governance works, what is required to move a country. But yet, you picked a neophyte, this man that can barely read above 9th grade level, to lead you guys. He said, well, listen, the man had the clout, the man had the influence, the people love him. We know he could have taken us to the top to achieve what we wanted to achieve. But this was with the expectation that Mr. President Weah will bring good people around him so they can make policy decisions to change the country. The likes of Solo and a bunch of other educated Liberians that were there. George Weah ostracized these guys. The plan and vision they have for the country could not come to fruition because President Weah fell little there over time. They were not telling stories. Now, I'm not for one that if you and myself discuss something, we'll come and discuss it. But be that may, it's already in the open. They are saying truths. You may say, oh, it's not 100% true, but almost everything they're saying about President Weah is entirely true. So I don't know what's the argument about. Solo said what he said, and they are almost entirely true. We know for a fact President Weah could not pay $200 in child support in this country. We know for a complete fact this man could barely paint his own house in Monrovia. He was dead broke. This man is destroying this country. When people talk and people want to threaten and say, oh, if you come to Liberia, look, if in a month and so I'll be in Liberia. The issue here is we want a better country. This is our heritage. And I'll give it to you guys.
Well, Mr. Padmore, I'd like to come to you. What happened? What happened to George Soros? What happened to George Soros? What's going on with George?
Nothing. George is a sedition. George believed in a movement. George believed in a revolution. And according to George has seen a revolution take a left turn. And it's upsetting to him. Now, it seems like we're narrowing down to George Soros. The fact of the matter is, there are dozens and dozens of George Soros out there. Isaac Tokba is a George Soros. If you go into the CDC USA, there are hundreds of them that have basically withdrawn their hands from CDC because they're like, this is not what we fought for.
Thank you.
This is not what we put money to. This is not what we rallied behind. What is happening now? This is not it. So George Soros is just the only one to really come out in public and speak about it. But there are hundreds and hundreds of seditions in Monrovia and out of Liberia who feel this way. I know them. I know some of them. They come into my inbox. They tell me, big brother, that thing we fought for, but we don't even know how to even talk it. Those people, they, especially the ones in Monrovia, Those were the seditions that voted for Darius Dillon. And those are the seditions today are looking for another candidate. And I'm telling you guys today, seditions, you will find that candidate in Alexander Benedict Cummings. Thank you.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to do a little history here. For those of us who are historians, we like politics, and let's look at the French Revolution. Okay. For those who are just a little refresher here, the main players of the French Revolution did not see the promised land. When you look at the three main guys, okay, when you look at George Jacques Danton, when you look at Jean-Pierre Marat, you look at Maxwell Raspberry, all these people, okay, I see Dual there.
Moses story, we see
yeah, because I don't know spin he putting on it, but go ahead.
Go ahead.
Mr. Eastman here. In every revolution, we have people say we have like almost 1 million people supporting George Weah, and within that million, we have like maybe 1,000 strong. In 1,000, we may have maybe 100 or 200. Now, we all who supported George Weah, it's impossible for one administration to absorb everybody. Now, those who felt like they were in the vanguard, they were the bricklayers, they were the cornerstone of the party, were left out, and new folks came in and they're enjoying the gravy. This have created this pressure cooker, and these people are going, Mr. Eastman, talk to me here. I mean, like he says, the George Soros of the world, you name all of those who were former former top leaders of the. Listen, man, how could all these highly educated top guys allow this, like you said, this 5th grade student to outmaneuver them and take it away from them? Talk to him, Mr. Eastman, because it makes me feel good about my uncle who never went to school.
There's a lot to unpack there. First of all, like any political party or any revolution, it evolves. When the way it starts up at inception is maybe completely different than what it ends up being. We've seen this. We've seen in our Liberian history. We saw a humble Samuel Kayando, who, when they were asked by the international press, what would be your policies, he referred to the economic ministers. What would be your relationship with the U.S. government? He referred these things, and 5 years later, he was dictating to everybody what to do. So it should be known to everybody that the person you're supporting, when they get power, it will evolve to something else. It may be favorable to you or not. So we shouldn't be surprised that there are these fallouts and all of that. But what I'm looking at is who is giving this man this platform to castigate the government and to castigate this administration? What is the strategy here? Because just a few months ago, maybe you knew, but some of us didn't know George Solo. We didn't know all the people who started those fires and built CDC to what it is today. We didn't know, but somebody is giving him voice. Somebody is elevating him to national prominence, that he can tell the whole Liberian public about the administration. I think not so much George Floyd, but I think people need to look at Spoon TV and what their strategy is here. I think that is the real culprit, if you ask me, because just like Mr. Padmore alluded to, there are several people disgruntled. We heard Lester Tinney the other day. That's the other person they brought there on the show. We've heard other people. So Spoon TV is strategically giving voice to the disgruntled. You know, we know about Isaac Tukba, but we notice that these things are this dissent is being highlighted by Spoon TV. Now, I know we're going to get into that, so I won't preempt it. But what we want to see, regardless of one's academic ability, if we have somebody who loves Liberia, okay, who is sincere, who is honest, and who has integrity. If you have those four qualities, it will better education, because you can have a very educated rogue, as we have seen this before.
I agree.
Okay? So we want integrity, we want honesty, we want sincerity, okay? And we want someone who actually loves Liberia. And if you have those four categories, you will attract the kind of people that will build Liberia.
Mr. Eastman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you think President Weah has any one of those qualities you just listed?
You want me to evaluate him from?
No, I mean, you just on the overview, you said a person have to possess certain qualities to make sure they're very good leader for the country, the transformative the change we're looking for. But which one of those qualities will you think President Weah has? You don't have.
I think we are evaluating that at this time, right now. I don't think there's a verdict yet. I think that's why I said I don't want to preempt it, but I think his next moves will prove who he really is.
Great. Now, before we move on to the next topic here, I'll come to Mr. Michael Padmore here. And I'm going back to history now. I'm going back to history because for me, I'm a politician, I'm a policy person, and I like history. 1980, Michael Padmore, 1980. After Jimmy Carter lost the election to Ronald Reagan, Jim Baker said, Ronald Reagan came from outside of the establishment. He came outside of politics. So what they did was they had a week of a class and they made him to read The Prince. Those of you who have never read The Prince and those who have read it, it is the famous 16th century novel political playbook written by Niccolo Machiavelli that says this is how you run a state. So Ronald Reagan said, "What is this?" And Jim Baker said, "You need a tutorial in this." When Ronald Reagan got out of that class, one of the first things he did that cemented him, this is a man they call novice and this and that. He went and told the air controllers that, listen, our first commitment and loyalty is to the nation, is not to your union. And I gave you 48 hours. If you don't come back to work, I'm going to fire the entire team. And people say you can't do that. The whole nation will come to a stand. It's dangerous. Airplane, these guys would, he said, if they don't come back to work. And he dealt with that and fired every one of them. So what I'm saying here is, if you are an educated person and you have not read Prince, which is the prerequisite to politics, if you don't know and you play with power, and in Liberia, absolute power. We have a history in Liberia. When you talk to President Tubman and Bagley, that arrangement, Bagley went up interior and said, I'm going to bring this country boy from up interior. He's not a Monrovia boy. You go over there, take the presidency for now, and then I will come back after you. And President Tubman said, fine, I will hold his seat. When he got in, who was the first person he dealt with? He dealt with Bagley, and then he went after the Monrovia boys, and some had role, and we know about the Colemans and all of that. So Tubman knew that. Tubman may have read The Prince. So here we are, for these educated boys and girls to say, we know what we are doing, we're going to give you power small, and then you bring us in, that will run this show. It tells me that they themselves don't have that kind of leadership quality. And those things that you mentioned, they didn't have it. They were not truthful to Liberia. They were using this man as a front. They thought they were using him as a front so they can come in and loot. But like the Bassa man always say, when you bend over to look at somebody, you got 1,000 people looking at your behind.
But Mr. Gayman, allow me to come back to answer Mr. to Ansu. Ansu, Let me tell you, if you wonder why I would not know, these people were with George Weah from back as far as 2003, even during Taylor time. And they said they didn't know he was like this. These people who have been with him 10 years plus, they didn't know. These people who ate and dined with him, went everywhere around the country, they didn't know. So you expect somebody like me who is just seeing him in action for the first time to make an evaluation when these people who are at point blank range, according to them, and they didn't know he would have done this? What I really believe, though, to be fair, that there have definitely been some moves that were wrong, bad optics, like building several houses all at once. And I would have built schools at once or clinics at once before building those. I think some things weren't the best moves, but I can make an assessment if these people who were with him for 10 plus years could not make that assessment, whether he had integrity, whether he loved the country, whether he had honesty, and he what was the fourth one I gave you? That he will be committed. If they couldn't judge him after all those years, I'm not in the position. I can't judge him so quickly, and I will wait.
Yeah, Mr. Gibb, if you allow me, please, Mr. Gibbon. Look, let me say this. First of all, your comparison of Weah to Reagan, I'm not even going to mention it. It's not in the same ballpark. Weah has run nothing before. And I want to say something. You talk about absolute power. I'm glad you, Mr. Gaiman, mentioned absolute power in Liberia, because this is exactly what it is. It's absolute power. President Weah just going beyond the brooks that we don't understand. But here's the thing. Even if and I want to say something before I forget this, Mr. Eastman mentioned that political parties will evolve, from the original. I get that. But no political party will evolve beyond its original ideals. And this is what CDC has done. They were so-called the People's Party. They were going to come in and cater to the poor people. And I don't know one policy under the CDC administration that has been implemented by the CDC themselves, where it took nothing less than 5,000 people out of poverty. I don't know about one policy. If you know, Mr. Gimme, I'll recommend you suggest it. Let us know today. But I want to say this. President Weah, even though he was not gauged properly by these people around him, this is why we have something called the Constitution. He swore an oath to the Republic to hold up our laws and the constitutions that govern this country. Nobody else has to vet him, but he knows he's not being held responsible. President Weah only wants to occupy the office of the presidency and not the responsibilities that come with that office. This is detrimental to our children. Look at the conditions in the country. Everything is deteriorating. Everything. Nearly everything in the country is deteriorating. And we continue to talk. Look, you talk about Soto being more exposed, Mr. Eastman. I would say this. Soto's been talking. You can suggest that he's becoming more voracious. I would say yes, he's talking more and more and more, but he's been talking for the last few years. This is not the first time he's going on Spoon, but now maybe the frequency has increased, and that will give it to you.
Well, Mr. Padmo, before we move on to the next subject here, I agree with Mr. Eastman. Spoon TV have become the new Jerry Springer, where everything goes. You bring a guy from the corner, and he pops up and says, "This is my baby. I got 5 babies here. I got 5 women, and this is not my child." And they're doing DNA and all of these things. You bring Costa on, Costa cursing women cursing him. You bring Soro on, Soro cursing, using some words that are not allowed according to the FCC, and they're doing it. And he sits back. Spoon sits back and have these people going at each other using some derogatory terms that a family show should not. So yet, if it's for rating, he has done very well. Just like Jerry Springer, when he was out there, he had Maury Povich on the other end. They were going at each other for rating. And then Horado came in and he brought KKK on his show, and Floyd broke his nose and all of that. So here we are now. We are having a family show that's supposed to discuss ideals, that's supposed to discuss policy. Nobody discussing policy, like you say. Everything is going downhill in Liberia. I didn't see Mr. Solo. I didn't see what a girl named Cooler, I didn't see Costa come on there to say, this is what I'm going to do about the imperial presidency. This is how we're going to dissolve that. This is how we're going to deal with the unitary system. Nobody is discussing policy. It's all about who is the more bombastic, who say the more ridiculous thing. Mr. Patman, before we move on to the next, I know you got something to say about that.
Well, I mean, to each his own. I would say that. That's the beauty of freedom. Everybody has the freedom to run their network the way they see fit. More power to them. But I will say that what we will not do is that we will not lump everything together as entertainment. These guys are divulging very important information that reflects on the president of the Republic of Liberia, his leadership style, what the plan was before, and what the reality is today. And I believe Liberians need to listen to that part of it. Liberians need to absorb it and understand it for themselves, and look at the leadership that they have had for the last almost 5 years, and ask themselves, is this what they voted for? Is this what they were promised? Is where is the 1 million people out of poverty? Where is the model city that was being built? Where is the how do you call it? Where is it? The twin cities you're going to build in the swamp or New Jersey? Where are those things? The only thing we've seen is the improvement in the lives of key government officials. Lieutenant McGee got 3 mansions.
Yeah.
3 mansions. He building house over the water for his wife.
Who better pay rent before.
Those things. Liberian people need to look at those things and ask themselves, is this what I voted for? Because if that's what you voted for, then okay, then you have what you voted for. But if that is not what you voted for, then you have to ask yourself the question, who do I vote for now? Who do I need to listen to? Who is promising me better? And what are their policies? Who has shown a life of integrity and and goodwill and success? And if they ask themselves that question, Mr. Gayman, guess what? It will all down to one person, Alexander Benedict Cummings and the CPP.
If you are here to promote Mr. Cummings, we will have to send you the bill. We'll send you the bill. He tried to sneak in free advertisement here. Mr. Eastman here. Let's go to number 3 on here. When I worked as executive vice president for the Chamber of Commerce here in St. Lucie County, one of my job title was to go and basically steal other corporations from all around the country, entice them to come to Florida. So that was my job. My committee would go and we say, listen, we want Script, the research giant, to move to St. Lucie County, and I'll go and do the presentation. And every time I went, there were 4 questions that were always asked. One was utility. Mr. Gayman, does St. Lucie County have the utilities, roads, internet, all of those things? Are you wired? And the second thing would be education. How's your school system? The third would be workforce development. Do you have the workforce development system? And all of that. And 2, they were talking about safety, law, and order. Those are the questions that I have to answer. And when you look at this president that came in with nothing at all, and today we are hearing all of these things, the foundation they laid through the protest and the and COVID and everything. Remember now, Cummings he said, my job is to make this country ungovernable, to make him one-term president.
Cummings never said that.
And then he was in Nigeria the other day. He said, if we have to put people, I can get people in the street to protest. This is Cummings.
Mr. Gayman, stop that.
Excuse me. With all of that, we are seeing here, Liberia is finally lighting up, and we signed a contract. We are now getting ready to, we are prepared to connect to the CLSG grid. Liberia is about to be linked from Bassau to Salier to Vanjima to Mano River. I mean, and the opposition can't stand this. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And that's number one. On investors coming to the country, you need utilities. The country is about to take off. And the president answered number two question. It got to be utilities, it got to be roads. The president building the road with those two things, connecting our countries, and we can move from point A to point B. And the utility, which is the number one expenditure item in the country, from private home to the public sector to the businesses. This is huge, man. George Weah this is huge for the president and the CDC, man. This is huge. The opposition, they are sweating, but this is huge. I'm excited. I can't even contain myself. Mr. Eastman, help me out here.
Just hold on to your hat, man, before it blows away. You know, Jerome, this is this comes close to home for me. What you probably don't know that prior to the war, I was captured at LEC. I was one of the very last in charge of LEC up until the war, July 19th. And after the war broke out and we shut down the plant, when ECOMOG came, Prince Johnson took me to the ECOMOG base, and the first thing they wanted was to put power back on. So if you ever wonder why across the bridge they had power and they had light, that was us. So this is my area of study, maybe 20 years ago. And I tend to lean now more to telecommunications and information technology, but that was my area. So I have a little bit of expertise in here. Electricity is definitely necessary for economic progress and development. There's no if and but. And the access to electricity is what is key. You may be able to produce, like right now we produce I think in environment of 50,000 kilowatts. So I think we're capable of producing up to 88 kilowatts, but it also has to be made available. You need access. It's one thing to produce it. So the three aspects of electricity. There's the generation of it. Now, if the generation, like we have a hydro generation, which is cheaper, which is the most economical way to go, hydro generation. They also have thermal energy generation, where you use fuel oil. You burn fuel oil to turn the motors, and which in turn turn the turbines and to produce electricity. And they also have nuclear and other methods. So yes, making electricity available for the country is excellent. It's an excellent idea. But this electricity is not being generated by Liberia. So at what cost is coming? You see, Liberia was one of the first to have that whole idea of that grid. It wasn't a Ghanaian idea. It wasn't an Ivorian. It was one of our ideas. We helped put that whole plan together. But we were supposed to develop our generating capacity in the meantime, okay, so that we will be suppliers. Because honestly, the average Liberian could not even afford, even 20, 30 years ago, could not even afford the cost of kilowatt to produce a kilowatt hour per hour. In other words, if it costs us 30 cents to produce it, the average Liberian couldn't afford it. So the way we used to manage is to sell to companies, embassies, people, high consumers, before we able to try to break even. So one of the things we were supposed to do is build capacity to generate where we will be suppliers. We will be benefiting from this thing going to Sierra Leone, to Guinea, and all of that. But we fell behind. The plan was disrupted. We went into a war. So where are we now that this line is being built and we are not really contributing that much to it like we had envisioned initially? The only thing I'm saying, can the Liberian people afford it? Because that's what it's going to boil down to, and that's for the average Liberian. But what I'm saying, are we making sure that this power line is extended to key industry companies that will be able to generate jobs, boost the economy, money flow, and the multiply accelerator affecting the economy, and increase GDP and local consumption?
Great. Mr. Patmore, take out your CPP hat here, and let's chime in on what this does for our country and our nation.
Well, you know, there's a common saying: the road to hell is paved with good intentions. There are a lot of good intentions that across history, even in our short history that we have had, it hasn't always played out the way it's supposed to play out. And it comes down to management. It comes down to leadership. Okay? Right now, the CLSG people had to disconnect Liberia because Liberia were behind their bills.
Thank you.
And now everybody is excited because they're going to connect more. What is the plan to pay these people? Nobody can tell you. Nobody in the government can tell you what is the plan to pay these people on time so that energy is there. Nobody knows. Everybody just balling. How the government looking? Everybody, you owe LEC, you owe CLSG, you owe water and SWO. It's so. Am I excited? No, I'm not, because I do not have any faith that this government will be able to carry out this project the way they are supposed to carry out. CLSG didn't show up yesterday. CLSG was created in the early 80s by the 4 countries. Liberia was just what Mr. Ismo said. Liberia was the leader in this because Liberia wanted to distribute. Guinea was a village. Let's be honest. Sierra Leone was a village. We wanted to send electricity to Zerakori, to Bo Waterside, to Danane. We wanted to do that. And now we're looking for them to send electricity to us. And we still haven't put our house in order. And until this government can lay out a plan and say, look, this is what we're going to do. This is how we are going to generate revenue to pay these people every month. I have no hope in this project. I'm sorry.
Great. Mr. Dualu.
Let me say this. I'm here killing myself laughing. But both guys are right. CLSG been in Liberia for a long time. In fact, only Ellen Johnson Salive, I believe, was in 2012 when they began the first distribution across the country. But I want to say this: Costa did not cost anybody on the spoon. He took a high position. Let's try to make that distinction. But let me digress and try to segment it in for you. When President Weah, when we talk about leadership that does not understand how a country works. In fact, day before yesterday, I published a paper called "A Simple Economic Guide to Fix Liberia." Check it out, Mr. Gayman. You'll love it. And what you need to do. In Grand Judah in Meriden County, President Weah wanted to boost his morale. He told the people they would use free electricity. So they brought the CLSG across that was already in the country. They were using free electricity for years. So I think about 2 or 3 years without paying. When Liberia owed these people over $8 million, Liberia could not pay. They cut it. Do you realize President Weah had the greatest opportunity to electrify the entire country? Mr. Gabin, when you mentioned that President Weah had nothing, he had nothing to run the country on. President Weah, since the inception of Liberia, he's been the most singular president that has inherited more to do with something than any other president in our country's history. Don't compare what LA inherited. President Weah inherited over a $500 million budget, a growing economy. So many things he could have done with it. But the man goes over, he makes decisions without thinking about them. Free education. What kind of person thinks that way? Something as massive of a country university. You get up in the morning, you want to boost your morale, and you just make these ridiculous assumptions and proclamations that benefit nobody. In Morovia, what it takes, Mr. Eastman knows the way more than I do, what it takes to distribute electricity. It's the infrastructure there. CLSGs can come all they want, but we cannot distribute if we bring in light poles. Do you realize for every light pole, when I was a boy in Buchanan, I don't remember one day they ever changed LEPO. The LEPO stood for years. In Liberia, a typical LIPO will break maybe a year and a half. It breaks. These are twigs. The cheapest possible material. President Weah, it goes from rolls to everything he's doing. Only very cheap because they're trying to steal from the country. Look, we have to think about posterity. You have to build for 3-4 generations. President Weah is pose an existential threat to the republic. This man must go. I'll give it back to you.
Thank you. I would disagree with you there, but we got to move on to our final. We're running out of time. Let's go to, we are seeing a lot of stuff happening in the country. The president is doing very well for what he inherited to where he is now. We call him the best president since 1822. So the guy is brilliant. He's doing very well. Now let's look at the next move. We are talking about political sanctions. We are talking about other stuff. And the president has some major decisions to make. People, like, I think there's one thing that we all agree on here. There are times when you are into some administration, people get complacent. You got to shake up some stuff. And I thought that it was after 4 years, the president had to reshuffle to bring in new blood, new ideas, new energy. That has not happened. So now we have sanctions on 3 of his top lieutenants. We are talking about the second man, his chief of staff. We are talking about the port, and we're talking about judicial system here. What would be the president's next move? The ball is now in his court. Mr. Eastman, I'm going to start with you on this one, and let's be brief because we got to go. Tell me, what should be the president? What would be his next move, or what should be the president's next move?
I believe I love that question and this topic. I believe this is the most defining moment in his political career. You see, right now, they've just like you said, they've sanctioned some key players for corruption, and amongst those key players are some of the person who was directing activities. So now President Weah has to take the reins himself. He has to take the steering wheel and steer the country. No more is his lieutenant steering the country now. He has to steer it. And this when he's going to prove himself to be a great leader. Because this is when great leaders show who they are. This is a beautiful moment for anybody who wants to be a great leader. Because now you're going to make the decisions. You're going to decide who goes where and what we do next. This grid, you're going to make the plans how we're going to, because remember, this same grid, we owe them $9 million. Look, you and I know very well, we pay, if we don't pay LEC, they cut our leg. How we manage, who's been consuming this energy and why haven't they paid them? It's going to be his manager, his call. He's going to have to put people there to do what he wants to do, and he has to check on them to make sure he does it. And if he will see more of this if he doesn't put a check on the corruption. So I think this is a beautiful moment for President Weah, and I think we're going to see the defining of Mr. Weah's administration right now. We're about to see it.
Ansu, what should be the president's next move?
Resign. Primarily, he must resign. The president cannot govern. He doesn't know how to govern. Look, I don't know why we are joking with this thing here. The president is directly sanctioned. I mean, Mr. Gay, man, you're an educated man. You understand the issue of agency. You know, if I represent you, whatever I do in my capacity, your representation directly reflect upon you. President Weah is a direct beneficiary of these corrupt acts. Everything that is done by the likes of McGill, Bill Tuawe, and Sereno Cephas was sanctioned by President Weah himself. Every single thing was sanctioned by President Weah himself. The reason why I say this because it's obvious. It's been happening now 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. President Weah encourages this. Look, Mr. Gayman, think about this thing. This man, on a country with a $500 million budget, a small fee compared to what a country should be run on, is flying private jets. He's buying things. What is one policy? I'm still looking for one policy that was thought about President Weah and his team put together implemented in Liberia that has impacted 5,000 people's lives. Remember, CDC said it would take 1 million people out of poverty. What can we say to our people? You understand the conditions in Liberia. You've been to Liberia multiple times. I know what's going on in Liberia. This is crazy. A President Weah either has to govern or step aside. It is that simple. I'll give it to you.
Mr. Padmore, we have a barn burner here, a gentleman who came from the Unity Party, who were cheering Robert Sirleaf, cheering Ellie Johnson Sirleaf, cheering all of those crooks. Now everybody loved it. Like Table New from his hometown, Massachusetts, that every man love his own crooks. This man love his own crooks. Talk to me about what should Joe we are doing next.
You know, it's very funny how we are very selective about the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government. You know, he was cheering Robert Sirleaf, he was cheering who else again? But we forget to know that the Minister of Finance was also working for that same government. We also forget that the President of Liberia was also working for that. So he was cheering Joe Weah, he was cheering Samuel Twe, he was cheering Nathaniel McGill, and on. Yeah. So let's complete the list. Thank you for cheering, Chief. You know, but the thing is, what is the president going to do next? That's the question. It's not what should he do, right? It's what is he going to do next? It's what is his next move? I really don't know. There is not a man that thinks logically, logical pattern. So it's very difficult to determine what he's going to do. My guess is that, if I'm not mistaken, Friday will make it 1 month since those 3 people were sanctioned. He has not even named an investigative committee yet. 1 month after the people are sanctioned. My guess, he's going to do nothing. That's what he does best. He will do nothing and hope that it blows over.
Yeah.
That's my guess right there. What he should do, he should fire those 3 people. He should fire them immediately. He should put together an independent investigative committee and give them the power to do a rational investigation with the assistance of the U.S. government. So that when I mean the assistance, I mean U.S. government can think for them, but to supply them with those evidences to say, okay, do you believe these people deserve sanction? Please let us see the evidence so that we can then complete our investigation. Upon the completion of our investigation, make it public to everybody and take punitive measures if indeed they are guilty. Take punitive measures. That's what he should do. Will he? No.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We have exhausted all of our issues here. We are running out of time. We are going to go into closing. I'm sorry we don't have enough time to read our comments and take some calls. We appreciate you for tuning in. Next Sunday, we are coming back here at 4 o'clock. We're going to have our full 2 hours where we can actually bring Mr. Dualo back here because he really wants to talk about this thing. And you can see for today, he disclaimed this was a product, a shining product of the Unity Party. Today, he disclaimed the Unity Party. Amen. What the Basel people say? They say often when you are often, you got very little friends. Now that the UPP is no longer around, they are so toxic. Even their own children disowning them. Now he inching his way to. I got more affinity with ANC than I have with any other body. Can you believe this, man? But anyhow, Mr. Dualo, thank you very much. Give us your 2 minutes of closing.
Mr. Gayman, thank you so much for meandering all over the place. I don't think it's going to get you anywhere. I've never worked in any government. Will never, ever. The day I get money, I run for the presidency. I can never work in any government under any circumstance. I'm a businessman. I want to go sell my chicken feet. That's all I want in Liberia. Okay? But what I do want for Liberia is for the young people in the country to get what we got, the education we got, to give them a better opportunity for the country. There's nothing wrong with talking about it. And I love what you said in the beginning, Mr. Gayman. At the end of the day, we want a better Liberia so posterity can judge us right. We don't talk because anybody hits anybody. We talk because we must talk. It's our heritage. But every time we say to our people, listen, this is how you vote right. There are decisions you make. Every decision you make must be weighed against the possibilities before you. Look, I would say this. President Weah did great things for my childhood. When he was playing football, I'm 45 years old. And sometimes we said, President Weah did great things, but he should have stuck to that. The issue of leadership, we must be also into the 21st century. And this man cannot do it, nor does he want to, nor does he know how to do it. And the danger we are playing here with is, that only the other people, listen, there's a criteria for leadership. There's a tremendous criteria for leadership. You know this best, Mr. Gayman. You know how to pick a leader, but you know with complete certainty that President Weah is not a caliber of person to be called a leader. What we are doing to our country is to the detriment of the young people in the country. The issue of Zogo, you have the president, he's bukaking while we are increasing the Zogo numbers in the country. No policy of any sort. We have prostitutions. Girls as young. Look, my daughter just turned 14. When I look at her, we got kids in the country, 14 years old, becoming prostitutes. How do we stand before our ancestors the day we meet them and say, this is what we did for Liberia? We are fighting for the soul of this country. It is not about President Weah. It's about the total elevation of our country. Once again, gentlemen, it was a pleasure.
Thank you. Mr. Padmore?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure to join you guys every Sunday evening to discuss Liberia. If there's one thing that we should never, ever grow weary of is discussing the betterment of Liberia. I know we talked about, the Unity Party and VP pick, and I think it was a good move by Unity Party to come up and post the disclaimer. That was a good move. That was a mature move. Because that what it does is it kind of cools off everybody. And then it pulls everybody into the back room and says, now let's sit here at the Unity Party table and let's discuss. And let everybody give their input and allow the standard bearer to decide. Not Mo Ali, not anybody else from Liberty Party, but the UP standard bearer to decide. So we'll see if that happens. I think a lot of people, it's easier when nobody has pulled ahead yet, but URE has not had a meeting or some sort of engagement with Joe Boyka yet. The only person that we see continue to have these impromptu engagements is Nyonblee Kangan Lawrence. So the other people are getting nervous. So we'll see what happens. We know Nyonblee doesn't have the money. We know, so if you pick Nyonblee, you gotta know what he said. When you name him, know what he said now on. When it comes to finances. So we'll see.
We're raising money.
Stop.
Hold your thought there because we will come by around for a few seconds of the political play on the ground. Mr. Eastman.
Okay. Thank you. I heard Mr. Dwalu say something that was music to my ears just now. And he says he's a businessman. He's not going to go work for the government. Whether we realize it or not, we have developed a high dependency on government and government jobs. That is not a true capitalistic environment. In a capitalistic environment, the businesses, the industry determine where the country goes, not the government. The government does the service for the people. We tell the government what to do. And we are looking for the government to do everything. They cannot, and they will never be able to. We have to take pains ourselves and develop. We saw the other day, I heard Amara Kone, former finance minister, coming back with a huge welcoming. And where does he want to go? He wants to run for Senate. This man has accumulated experience. He has some wealth. Why is he coming back and participating in the private sector? Everybody wants to go to the government. And the government cannot do it. The government is not our solution. They can only facilitate. Our solution depends on us, our entrepreneurship, our development of our own economy. The government can't do it. And so we can point fingers. We can say that president, that other president, it's still us. The buck stops here. We're going to have to develop, especially us in the diaspora, with the expertise, the more finance than anyone else. We are actually Liberia's middle class.
Yeah.
And it's going to be us.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get involved industrially, economically to change that country, but not politics. Politics doesn't bring solutions. They can only facilitate. So until we get that notion that we're not going to depend on the government, we're going to do things on our own, it's going to be like this.
Great. Mr. Eastman, your political play of the week.
My political play of the week, huh?
Yes.
Well, I tell you the truth. I was astonished that the UP will take the stand they just took. I think that's a bomb, and I don't see it faring well. So, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, I think that's a bomb they threw out there. I want to see how it goes.
Excellent. Mr. Patmore, your political play of the week.
My political play of the week actually was the House of Representatives rejecting there's this confusion about benefits bill, pension and benefits bill. That was my play of the week. I believe they did what may about the full explanation of what happened. I think they did for once. Whether they did it just to save their political lives, because a lot of them do not believe they are coming back, or they have a good chance of coming back, or whether they actually did it for Liberian people, no one will ever really know. But that was the political play, rejecting that, totally and sending it back to the Senate.
Beautiful. Mr. Dualu.
Yeah, Brother Padmore, that was not done for any altruistic reason or any moral high ground. These boys did it because of public backlash. It's plain and simple. But here's my political play of the week. Is when Samuel Tuer goes on Spoon Network and claims that we are going to pass the FCC net scorecards, even though he says it every single year we've never passed. I believe it was ridiculous because the numbers do not show that we are going to pass. You can go and pay some network to publish something in Liberia, but the political play of the week is Samuel Tuer lying to the people that we're going to pass the FCC when we have not passed a single year, 5 years in a row. That's my political play of the week.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, I'm going to close with mine. I want to remind the public how President George Minor Weah, in this part of the world, they don't even call him President Weah, they call him Mr. George, because of his striking ability, his leadership ability. When this administrations began, everybody were comparing Liberia to Sierra Leone, Guinea, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, the whole 9 yards. And then here we are here, the scorecard, and it says Liberia outperformed 5 other countries in West Africa in the economy. In the 6 indicators set aside by the World Bank. And then we are about to connect to the grid. Liberia is about to be connected to the grid. Liberia is about to get roads, funding for roads, according to the EU president here. They support the PAPD's connectivity policy. No country can develop without road connectivity. So the EU man says that is our brand. That is what we like. That is what we're going to support. So with the road connectivity, utilities, the World Bank, the economy improving. Ladies and gentlemen, Liberia is about to take off economically. This thing is going to be a rocket. It's going to take off like a jet. And Liberia, I can't tell Dualu that it's going to be all milk and honey, my man, but you are a businessman. Come back to Liberia, hire more folks like Mr. Padmore is doing. this is how we're going to do this. And what we all need to do is to influence our lawmakers so we can take some of the incentives for going to government. Mr. Dwell, you and I live in this country. There are not too many people you know that made $200,000-$300,000, regular folks.
Nope.
So that was the when you talk about the greatest sin ever committed on Ellen was that particular aspect of a policy where these people.
I agree.
Okay, you're telling Michael Pamela go do his farm and sell his avocado and work hard to make money, and some guy from down the street is making $20,000-$30,000 a month. What does that say to the young kid, the Zogo you're talking about? You tell him you go to school, he says, like a guy here said, there's a school here in Jacksonville that gives out PhD to everybody who is a preacher. When you see these guys running around in Liberia, calling themselves doctor, usually they where they go 6 months, you become a doctor. And one guy that worked for him said, Mr. Gimmy, I knew that PhD was so easy to get. I wouldn't have wasted my time in high school. I would have just gone right to Jacksonville and got my PhD and be done with it. So this is what we are saying. If you are telling the guys that if you make it to the House or the Senate, the rest of your life, you don't have to work. You're talking about
Think about it.
9 year guarantee of making that kind of money. So we have to rally around. There has to be some kind of referendum to take some of the incentives of going to government. We got to value work, real work.
I agree.
I'm not saying. Can you imagine these guys meet twice a month? Every Tuesdays and Thursdays to meet Tuesdays and Thursdays. So how do we justify to the Zogos we are talking about, those young kids in our neighborhood, that if you go to school and spend 9 years being an engineer, electrical engineer, this and that, you got to do this to better your life? And he says, but look at Corus Gray. He and I were out here doing our little thing. Look at him now. He's a multi-millionaire. So the onus is on us. How do we incentivize this? Tell
the president not to sign the budget.
But it's a law. It was a law to pay these guys.
Yeah, so you can veto the budget.
This. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on. I think you guys were on point. The major political play in Liberia this week to me was the House.
Okay.
The House. The House rejecting this thing. What? Listen, politics.
With the public pressure.
But listen, politics is all about optics. Okay, it doesn't matter who pressure you. Once you come in there, what they say, we don't care how you dress the devil. When the devil looks good, is good. The other guys say the devil don't look good. Put shanty, put mirror always so it can shine. That's what it is.
But Mr. Gradroom, this is a beautiful example how Liberian people can tell them this thing you're doing, we're not accepted.
I agree.
I agree. But we can't sleep when they're about to do something like this. Now we have media. We have to blast it. 15,000. Where did you? Why? What justifies you paying yourself to 15,000?
But not only that, look at the pension that they were trying to pull through. If we didn't have social media, this guy is saying they are making $200,000-$300,000 already, but when they get fired from their job, they will get 5%.
Yes.
When he died, his wife gets it until she died. Then their children take it until. I mean, what kind of country is this?
Exactly. We have people who don't care about.
And then they're saying, Mr. Padmore, Dualu, Mr. Eastmore, we all pay into our pension in this country. These guys said they are exempted from paying into it. They're not paying into it. No taxes. This is pure highway robbery, and I'm glad somebody stopped it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Next Sunday, same time, simply, we'll take your calls and read a comment. Thank you very much for coming, guys.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure, man.
As usual, we end this with our same song, We Are All Liberians.
We are Liberians.